Jon is going to be sharing with us how he's connected his family story and cultural roots and the farm that he's also working on as well. Jon Jackson.
Hey, thanks for coming out today. Last time I saw you, Jer hit me up and said, "Hey, I need to speak to you for Clive and Kate, for Clive and Bundy." I don't know if you guys have been here for that. That was something else. I tell you. And I do respect the man, by the way, because who doesn't want to grow watermelon out in the desert, right? Because really, that's what we came here for. Guys, I'm going to be totally honest with you. Like I said, I'm a United States Army Ranger. I spent 11 years in the service. I did 6 combat corps. Leading up to this event has been really, really difficult for me because last night, 12 years ago, my Ranger buddy I was getting him ready for a mission. Captain Kyle Comfort, who the farm's named after. He was happy about going on this mission. It was his first mission with the Ranger Regiment, with our boys to go out there when we were going down there to hunt Taliban. Okay, it was the Marines were getting hammered, and they sent us in to go do something. And it was the first time that we were able to get Kyle Comfort to come out and to do this mission. This was something that he was real proud about. I remember that night, last night, I was going ahead, I was suiting him up. I put on his kit, making sure that he had everything, because as Rangers, that's what we do. We check our buddy, make sure that we have all of our gear and things that we need to do. And I put his stuff on, and when he was walking out, ready to go out to get on that bird, we kind of give a good old boy pat on the butt and, all right, man, go out there and do some great things. Once they got there, the fight was intense. It was terrible. A lot of things took place. Our units kind of positioned to go through, and there were booby traps all over the place. And today was the day that Kyle Comfort walked and stepped on a landmine and got into a very complex ambush. And he was dead, but the medical guy that was there said he was alive because all our Rangers were in intense firefighting. Had that medical guy said that Kyle was dead, it would have, for a split second, hurt our guys who were out there. But he said, no, he's alive, and kept them even fighting more because we don't leave any man behind, right? So on that day, when he arrived, I pulled him off of that plane, or that bird, and I pulled him off today, 12 years ago, May 2010, right? A hero that you'll never know. And I pulled him off that plane, or that bird. And there was no way that I knew that guy was alive. My Ranger buddy, there was no way I knew he was alive. And the hardest thing for me was going back to his troop and picking up all his belongings and sending them back to his mother. Mother's Day. His mother is a rock star. If you guys ever get a chance to meet her, she is an awesome, amazing woman who has raised some warriors. And I just want to kind of give a big thanks to her and to Kyle for their sacrifices and what they did for this country. And so with that, just round of applause. All the women and all the men who sacrificed so much for our country, especially on Mother's Day for those who don't have, who are living well past their loved ones. So with that being said, my spring is a little bit different from a lot of people's spring because I fought for 11 years, over a decade, in what we call the Arab Spring. And that's when it's like Gothic City. Everybody wants to go to Afghanistan, Iraq, to kill an American. So you'll have all these different fighters from all over the place, and we don't know who we're getting, and that's it. So for me, springtime is a tough time because the last couple of weeks, guys, I lost a lot of guys, to include Kyle today, right? So I was trying to come up with some cool things to say and kind of connect with all of you, and I just said, I can't. I'm just going to show up, whoever's in the crowd, I'm going to talk to you from my heart. I might cry a little bit, I might laugh a little bit, you might sigh. So I'm here. I will tell you this, though, that because of that experience of coming out of war, I went into a deep, dark depression. I almost took my life, a couple of years ago. Had it not been for my son walking into a room with a gun on my lap, me looking at the sunset. It would be my last sunset because I brought the monster home with me and turned that on to my family and friends, and I couldn't bear it. Who's better to kill the monster than the monster killers themselves? And that's what I tell a lot of my vets. But I survived that ordeal. I got a second chance to do something great, and I used my Ranger buddy, Captain Khaled Comfort, as the catalyst to do great things and for all the vets that were lost. Thank you. So the biggest thing, guys, is when you go to war, right, you have to lose yourself, right? You have to kind of forget who you are, right? Because young Johnny, who was riding a big wheel and, eating carrots so he can spot grasshoppers, so I could win the contest, that guy didn't survive that. I actually remember young Johnny fleeting away in one of my last firefights that I was in when I actually turned from a young boy into, I can't even call him a man. It was something else worse to be able to survive that place. But when you come out of war, you're trying to find, like when I came out of war, it was a little bit different for me. I was trying to find my connection to who I really am. I'm a war fighter. I'm not that person that I used to be, right? Coming into war, I don't even know who that person is anymore. My parents didn't know who I was. My friends didn't know who I was. So who am I? That's the question that we ask. So as an African American, I started to go back. I wanted to go back into my roots, right? And my mom, who happened to be from Africa, and my dad, who happened to be from LaGrange, I had a pretty unique cultural experience growing up. But as a cultural experience, as me growing up as a young African American kid, I did not. In so many words, I was embarrassed of my African heritage, right? Let's just say that America hasn't been nice to, a lot of what the portrayal of Africans were. And so I wanted to hide away from those things. And so when I grew up as a young kid, my classroom pretty much looked like this. It was a diverse group of people because my mom worked 3 jobs to put me into a private school so that way I could have an upbringing that was different from the one that she saw around here in America, and she wanted me to be raised with a very broad view or in a very, like a greater experience, as she would say. So when we would have these cultural things, I would have our Asian friends. They would talk about their cultures and dynasties and my Irish friends, and which they did. There's a lot that went on here in America with folks from Ireland. But we would go around all this group, and they would get to me, and it was, well, John, Harriet Tubman, do you know her? Slavery. And it was the start and the end of who I was as a person. And I grew up like that my whole entire life. I am 46 years old. I am the first person in my family to be born with all his rights. Think about that. Think about that. I know we like to say that, slavery and things were way, way in the past, but you're looking at the first person in his family to be born with all of his rights. I kind of dismissed that for a long time, not even knowing what that actually meant, until I really start to understand what that actually meant. And it meant that as an American who fought for his country, proudly so, I would do it again. But I would much rather give my life for any of the guys who were killed over there. I would do it again. But for me to be here, I serve that flag for one reason, for what it stands for freedom, injustice, and liberty for all. Amen. It doesn't matter who's under that flag and what they believe, whether they're a hardcore KKK person or, some hard liberal activists or whatever it is. That's not what the flag stands for. The flag stands for what it means, and we as a society seem to be fighting for what it means. And I'm happy to be part of it. I'm happy that my ancestors have been a part of that. So, one of the things that I like to talk about is, we only grow in our discomfort, right? I'm going to read you guys this quote before we go, right? a lady by the name of Cynthia, she said, for a seed to achieve its greatest expression, it must come completely undone. The shell cracks, its insides come out, and everything changes. To someone who doesn't understand the growth, it would look like complete destruction. And with that, I created Comfort Farms as a way to honor my friend, but also a way to have hard discussions so that we can grow. Because none of us can grow in our comfort zone. Kyle didn't join the Ranger Regiment because he wanted a comfortable life. He wanted to do the hardest thing. And so I'm carrying the baton on with our discussions and moving forward. And even with myself, is that we only grow in our discomfort. So yes, I'm going to talk to you guys about some things today that might be a little bit uncomfortable. And if it's uncomfortable, guess what? That means you're growing. If it's not uncomfortable, that means you're not growing. And I'm going to make it very uncomfortable. No. All right. So sitting around that table as a young kid and reading about my story about slavery and where it ended, I just knew that there was something a little bit more about who I am, right? And I always wondered, where can I go to find this information, okay? And so there's really no information that you can find, okay? Because most of the history that's written about African Americans come from a point and perspective of slavery. I learned that me as an African American, my ancestors contributed nothing to the world. I learned as a young person growing up that everybody who came before me as slaves did not have anything that they could do to make the world great. And that's just a sad place to be in. And so one of the things that I started to do was I realized that the only way that I can find out about my culture and help people to find out about their culture is through agriculture. Because think about this. There is no culture without agriculture. There is none. What did your ancestors eat? Who are you when you unveil the onions? Your primal self, sitting around the campfire, naked or with a loincloth. What did you eat? What was your spirituality? What was the politics of the land around you? Who were those people that got you here today? So I had to step back out of what I was being taught and understand that there's things that have not been taught that I really need to examine. And so, with that being said, I had to follow the seed trails. I had to follow the seed trails, snake my way through this disinformation, information that was written. Now, I'm going to tell you, my culture, they don't write stuff down. They share things orally. They share things through music and through song and through food. My history is in those things. My history is not in books. And so when the Europeans came, and because so many, Africa has over 3,000 distinct cultures and tribes that are all different, the most diverse in the world. They all speak different languages. And because of that, because they couldn't read and write the way that Europeans did, they were viewed as uneducated. But there was one thing that Africans had that really supported Americans that I had to read about, and it was their agrarian lifestyle and what they brought to America for agriculture, right? The Africans were exploited because of their knowledge in growing food, because of their knowledge in using things. Let's talk about rice, for instance. The rice culture that I learned about in South Carolina. There were more Africans in South Carolina than there were planters and white folk in South Carolina. And they moved more dirt to produce rice for England than the Egyptians had for the pyramids. Wow. Imagine that. We all understand what the pyramids were. We all understood what it took to do such a great feat. But in South Carolina alone, there were more Africans that were brought over here to do that. But I wanted to go further, because these people knew, it wasn't like you just go get a bunch of Africans and bring them over here, right? And just say, hey, go do rice for us. There was some ancient knowledge that they had over there. And so when I start going back into my research, because I found out that I'm not only, I'm 14 different countries, 80% of them are African, and the 20% of them are European. That 20% largely is Viking. I mean, it really is, and it's more likely that I had an ancient Viking grandmother who met up and had a tryst with a more African in Europe somewhere and did something for why I'm here, right? That's a little romance. And that's like a true story when you start going back into it. But the idea is that when you go back over to the Niger Delta in Africa, and I didn't get taught this in school, because remember, it was slavery, carried up, that's it. And when I start going back into my literature, and I start going back into the rice cultures of Mali and Senegal, and the Wolof people, right? Our rice culture, that's who I am. When you're looking at somebody today, me as a person, my people are rice people. Rice was as important to them as corn is important to Native Americans. It was a spiritual, political thing. They grew rice, and they call it jollof rice. And out of that jollof rice that inspired the world came our paella, came a lot of Mexican dishes that had rice in them. This was more like a porridge rice that they made. And these are the things that got to be expanded into all cultures. Our cowpeas that we eat, they're all from Africa. Every single cowpea is from Africa. And the funny part about this whole thing is that history says, well, Africans came with the Europeans and blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's what we're all taught to believe. Well, Ghetto here in Baker Creek has a watermelon called the Arcones Watermelon. You guys ever grow that? Arcones Watermelon? Try growing that watermelon. You grow that? Okay, right. I know why you're growing it. The interesting thing about Arcones Watermelon that was found in a cave in Utah. Found in a cave in Utah. An old Native American cave in Utah. In that cave was a vessel. And in that vessel was red seeds. Watermelon seeds. So, they went and they said, well, this is a very old artifact. And when they did the analysis on it, they found out that it predates Columbus' arrival and the Europeans' arrival to America. Why is that important? It's important because watermelons are indigenous to Africa. And so when you start going back and following these seed trails, and you start looking at it, the things that people say you're crazy for thinking about, those are not things that are crazy. Those are things that have been in the historic texts and cultures of indigenous people well before Europeans arrived to this country. And to dismiss those things is to dismiss truth. And the biggest thing for us as a culture is that I have to understand is that white folks don't understand me just as much I don't understand me. And so in order for us to understand each other, we have to unlearn some things so we can learn some things. Period. That's what we have to do. And so I always push the bar on Comfort Farms. When people come in, I'm going to tell you, it's our culture. We love it. I love seeing people squirm. When the chef comes in, you know, and they're like, oh, I want to do this. I was trained at this place and blah, blah, blah. I say, no, what did your grandmother teach you? What inspired you? You're going to cook something that you have never cooked before. Well, I don't know how to do that. That's the point. That's why you're here, so you can learn, right? And so everybody that comes to Comfort Farms, I think the most comfortable place on Comfort Farms is the sign out in the road. Right? You feel comfortable? Stay there. You come up that driveway, you're going to catch hell. You're going to catch hell. But what that does is for people, when people leave this experience, they're able to embrace some things and they start looking at things just a little bit different. They start accepting, you know, a part of themselves or a part of what they've learned, you know, to say that, hey, you know what, let me look into this deeper. And just that fact of moving away from what you've been taught for so long to what you have unlearned to what you will now learn is what we call progress. Okay, that's what we call progress. So, with that being said, as an African American, I'm sitting here, I'm like, on Comfort Farms, I knew Kyle would definitely appreciate this. That's just what the kind of dude he was. And my point, as a farmer on Comfort Farms, one of the biggest things that I have to understand is that I'm not just a farmer for myself, I'm also a farmer for all people, right? When people come to my farm, I don't care what nationality you are, what genre, whatever it is, I want to know about who you are. I'm learning about myself, but with that, like I said, that other 20% of me, it's Italian, it's Northern Italian, it's the Baltics. I don't even know where the hell the Baltics come in. What's going on? But these are all seafaring people understanding a little bit about your culture, and that's how they were to be industrious. So, with that being said, we also looked at this okra as being a competitor to hemp because of the fact that the materials from this okra in one season, less than one season, just a couple of months, the base of these okra, if you have really good soil about this thick, so they're like trees that just grow up and produce so much okra, and then it was classified as a subsistence okra within certain tribes. So to me, this was fascinating. And Jir and I, we worked together on this to introduce Motherland okra for the first time to the United States. He's the only one that I worked with on this because of his integrity with seeds and what he's been able to do, and how many African Americans and people who are connected to the diaspora wanted to be able to get those seeds. The coolest thing about growing these seeds was that we have people from Ghana, people from Senegal, people from Mali, Liberia, buying these seeds here because these were the seeds of their grandparents that they grew and they don't have it anymore. Imagine that. Imagine that. That right there is a win, that we're able to do that. That we're able to do that. Stop, audience. So, in saying all of this, one of the things that I wanted to do was bring these hard discussions to the table and make them palatable, right? Because sometimes when we hear things, they rub us the wrong way, we don't like them, but you know what? Truth deserves to be told, but it deserves to be told amongst people that want to care, that want to do good, and that want to spread the word about what they've learned and also do their own research. And so, with that being said, that's what I'm trying to do, and I hope that we all do, is that we bring the dignity back to our ancestors' lives. Okay? That's my main thing. I want to be able to restore the dignity that I have, that my ancestors came in over here, and the things that they did. They weren't just a disheveled people. They had a lot of ingenuity. As we were getting back, I think I got off the Niger Delta story there with the rice. One of the reasons that they used that was they were able to take this the waterways, right? And they went in and they cut these dikes that were about 12 feet deep, 100 feet wide, straight lines for miles, as you can see. And what they did was, the men did those type of things, but the women would, on their flats, they would go ahead and set the rice, and they're able to manipulate the dikes from the fresh water that's being pushed against the brackish water into a space where these things can germinate. Once germinated, they can cut it back and allow that flow to come. We're talking rivers and oceans. They can come back, they can move that stuff around, and then what they do is, as you guys are sitting on these hay bales, the water would be about 6 to 8 feet below, and then they would plant their transplants in this raised area that, because the roots would grow down so far. And this is what they did in the Niger Delta in Africa, and that was the technology that was exploited by the South Carolinians and in Georgia to bring over here to make the South pretty wealthy. And with that, one of the things I learned was we give no credit to the ingenuity that Africans came over here. We don't give credit to a lot of the indigenous that are here with their knowledge and things that they have passed on. And I think that's really important to go back and look at the origin. You know, typically if some things are called a certain name, that's really not its indigenous name. Its indigenous name is something else, but it also meant something else too. And so it's really, really important to go back and to understand that. I don't believe in appropriation. I don't believe in you growing something or doing something that people say you're appropriate. I personally don't believe that. I think if you do it with the knowledge and the expectation that you're going to honor that culture and you're going to bring dignity to that culture, I think that's nothing more beautiful than that. Because at the end of the day, we're only one race, and that's the human race. Amen. So, with that, anybody have any questions? You can ask me anything. Yes, ma'am.
The okra, is that grown here or not sold here?
Yes, Motherland okra is sold here. Gia and I have worked out with my nonprofit at Comfort Farms that every seed, every sale of those seeds go back to our nonprofit. So it's a beautiful thing. Those okras, it's a super rare okra. If you live in an environment where you kind of get cold, the okra will adapt. Motherland will adapt. She needs super hot, long days to grow big. If she gets kind of cold, she'll stress out. She'll start producing okra at an early age, and that's okay. You'll find that she'll get okra at an earlier age. She just won't grow as tall. So the seeds that we sell from only the biggest plants that we can get, just so that we can maintain that those unique qualities of that. But you can grow it and save seeds. It just will degrade over time. Yeah.
What about for watermelons?
Yes, so Arcones Watermelon. Gier sells that at Baker Creek as well. And there's also another Bevan Cohen. He has another watermelon that was raised by the Pacwa people up in North America that predates Columbus' journey here as well. You can ask me anything you want. I'm not scared. Yes, ma'am?
I love the picture of the roasted in the catalog.
Oh, yes.
How are some other ways you like to cook that?
Okay, so she talked about how do you prepare Motherland okra, right? One of the things that I love about Motherland okra is roasting it. Cut it in half, put it over. I have the aioli sauce there. You just put a little bit of olive oil, your best sea salt that you want, roast that thing, and then once it roasts, have a little char on it, dip in your aioli sauce. It's beautiful. The best way I like to eat it when I'm working out in the fields and doing what I have to do is a little salt pack here, my thing, and I eat it raw. Yep. Okay, so you could go in, and if you touch the tip, if the tip is pliable, then it's ready to eat. That thing will get a little bit bigger than most, but it's just really, really beautiful. The flour on Motherland okra will make your head explode because it's such a beautiful, beautiful flour. And when you do taste that okra, it's going to have a very natural floral taste. So with a little salt, she will shine. Yes, ma'am.
Is it good for canning?
I don't know. I think the little ones, I've never canned it before, and I'm not a canner. It's something I wish I would learn from my grandmother, right? But it's the first time it's here. We have tons of people around the country that are going to be growing it, and I think it's a great. You want to treat it more like.
Pick it early then?
Yeah, so you want to treat it more like a beet because it's not long. And it's not like your Texas Hill Country. It's literally round and bulbous. So if you pick it smaller, those are super delicious. I think it would make an excellent candy okra as well.
Is there some at the store right now? You have to order?
I think we have some at the store too. Yeah, I would say go and get it. Like I said, it's a super rare okra, only being here at Baker Creek. I had a lot of people that want to backdoor me and say, hey man, let me get it. Like, now you gotta go to Baker Creek. Right? That's it.
With it being as big a stock as it is, I'm down in Louisiana, so I'm not too far from it. Does that
If I don't get a hold of it.
If one frost hit it, it went back and then it got mad. And then he got mad. So in the South, one thing that you learn from our ancestors, you don't grow a crop of okra, you whoop it. Talk to some of these old timers, they tell you gotta whoop a crop of okra. And so you go through and you whoop that thing and you break off some leaves and you make it mad. Yeah, and she'll grow. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
That's fascinating, that time.